Thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you. Here's what happens when the fob to a new minivan gets tossed into the key party that is the car and driver fleet. 28 staffers take turns packing in their slobbering pets, gooey-fingered kids, and various friends and neighbors for a flurry of schlepping and errand running. Just the thought of all the spills, spittle, crumbs, and dander is enough to have us reach reflexively for a disinfecting wipe. As we have learned, the minivan is the vehicle type most likely among the long-term fleet to smell like sweaty feet. With a new game, comprehensive interior and exterior upgrades, and a host of added features, the new 2017 Pacifica is a boon for the sliding door shuttle at a time when it's up against a tide of swelling crossover demand. This is Chrysler's 6th generation of the superlative kid hauler, which has never been quicker, better looking, or more fuel efficient, and we promptly awarded it Best Van on our 10 Best Trucks and SUVs list. Impressively, the new van managed to shed some weight in its redesign while getting substantially stiffer and passing NHTSA and IIHS crash tests. Other than the new plug-in hybrid variant, there's just one Pacifica powertrain, a 287 horsepower 3.6-liter V6 coupled to a 9-speed ZF automatic. Although the V6 propels the Pacifica to a low 7-second 0 to 60 mph time and emits a pleasant snarl when being wailed on, there's occasionally an untoward grittiness that comes through at modest engine speed.We opted for the $38,890 Touring L Plus trim, one short of the top limited model and the cheapest way to get the new dual touchscreen Uconnect Theater rear seat entertainment system. To that we added $4,875 in options, 18-inch wheels, a trailer hitch, navigation, and the $1,995 bundle of driver assist features. It's $1,000 cheaper for 2018, that includes the well-sorted adaptive cruise control system that works all the way down to a stop, a 360-degree surround view camera, and automatic wipers and high beams. We grumbled as we ticked the box for the $295 inflatable mini spare, as we have a philosophical issue with carmakers charging for a spare on a family hauler, particularly one not wearing run-flat tires. Our slight modesty meant going without the limited trim's niceties, such as a panoramic sunroof, a power folding third row, kick under to open sliding doors, and a built-in vacuum, which, eliminates the spare tire option. But really the only feature we missed was the high-intensity-discharge headlamps, as there were numerous complaints among the staff regarding inadequate illumination on rural roads. In IIHS's testing, these halogen units scored poor, the lowest of its 4 ratings. Since the 2005 model year, the stow-and-go fold-into-the-floor second-row bucket seats have been the Chrysler minivan's exclusive and headlining feature. In this latest evolution, the seats are far more comfortable than before, and they kneel forward to grant access to the third row in a manner that allows the child seat to remain secured in place. Plus, there's a button on the B-pillar that powers each front seat out of the way for even easier stowing and going. When the underfloor bins aren't holding the seats, they provide large additional stash spaces. All that said, these flexible buckets are still notably flatter and firmer than the non-stowable second-row seats in competing vans, and they don't have any forward aft or side-to-side adjustability. The pack-everything space, configurable 7-passenger seating, hushed and luxurious interior, straight highway tracking, and commanding view ahead, its downward visibility is more than 10% better than the Honda Odyssey's by our measurements, make the Pacifica an excellent accumulator of miles. And sure enough, we road-tripped south to Georgia and Florida, west to Wisconsin and Iowa, and even farther west to Nebraska, Wyoming, and Idaho. At its best, our Velvet Red Pearl van covered as many as 500 miles per tank and averaged as high as 29 miles per gallon, even when pushing 80 miles per hour on our 200-mile highway test loop, which we ran at a steady 75 miles per hour. The Chrysler achieved 31 miles per gallon, beating the Toyota and Honda minivans and even topping the 25 mph of its plug-in hybrid sibling. On the open road, the Pacifica got regular accolades for its rear seat entertainment, its 8 built-in games, including word and math games, the license plate game, checkers, and solitaire, proved universally mesmerizing to our children, which is saying something in an era where new humans are issued their own sophisticated electronic devices closer and closer to a successful exit from the birth canal. And the Pacifica's dual 10.1-inch screens, each given its own designated USB and HDMI ports, are superior to the single-screen setups found in the Honda Odyssey and the Toyota Sienna. In all, there are 6 USB ports in the Pacifica, twice that of what the top Odyssey offers. Of course, we had some beefs, too. Why does it require a 4-step process to get the DVD audio to play over the vehicle's speakers? And the 3G Wi-Fi was insufficient to accommodate streaming video. Chrysler has added 4G for 2018. Until we got an electronic nudge from it one morning, we didn't realize that the Uconnect infotainment system was capable of over-the-air updates. 20 minutes later, the download was complete, although we can't say we noticed any substantial changes. We wish the lack of Android Auto and Apple CarPlay compatibility, a gripe we had with the otherwise excellent system, could be as easily remedied on 2017 models like ours. On our mountainous, out west haul, we logged our biggest complaint, the 9-speed Auto's reluctance to downshift, combined with its lack of manual control. Ascending steep grades became a perpetual death spiral of gear hunting. The transmission's initial reluctance to downshift meant that as we kept adding throttle, the first downshift we'd get was often a 2-gear kickdown, at which point the Pacifica would start rapidly gaining speed. After all, it doesn't lack for power. Backing off to prevent exceeding the intended velocity initiates the process all over again. Overall, this ubiquitous transmission shifted more smoothly here than in other applications, but as 40,000 miles approached, it would bobble the occasional low-speed downshift when coasting to a stop. Although the Odyssey steers with more precision, and we prefer a bit more body control out of the Pacifica, the Chrysler minivan shocked most drivers with its penchant for corners. The 18-inch Michelin Premier AS tires far outperformed their 17 and 20-inch alternatives, helping our Pacifica cling to the skid pad at 0.07 grams and stop from 70 miles per hour in 164 feet, figures on par with those of our long-term E46 Generation 2001 BMW M3, which was nearly 1,000 pounds lighter. How's that for a reminder of the major gains in tire performance in recent years? Not surprisingly, with about 2/3 of their tread worn away at the end of our test, the Magic Michelins did even better, pulling 0.89 grams. And although the van's stability control can't be completely switched off, we tip our hat to whoever spent time dialing in unobtrusive max slot runs. This puts the Pacifica at the upper echelon of cornering performance for anything with 3 rows, just off the 0.91 grams posted by the $126,295 Mercedes-AMG GLS 63 4MATIC summer tires. The Pacifica's oil changes are dictated by the trip computer, and they seem to align almost exactly with the 10,000-mile maximum recommended interval. Those 4 stops, which each included a tire rotation and the usual inspections, plus a cabin air filter at 20k and 40k miles, and an engine air filter at 30k miles, ranged from $86 to $168, for a total service cost of $572. Not bad. But stay vigilant, people. Our dealer neglected to replace the engine air filter and also missed a tire rotation until we pointed out both. Our only unscheduled stop was to fix a creaking noise that manifested when accelerating from west. It was remedied by lubricating the front door hinges and seals. One small annoyance our dealer couldn't solve: sometimes after a remote start, the Pacifica's VEC system would default to its coldest setting rather than the previously set temperature. It turns out that blasting ice air is rather counterproductive to warming the cabin. As our test was drawing to a close and we were getting ready to celebrate the Pacifica's nearly trouble-free record, we noticed paint bubbling on both outside edges of the hood. Although the repair would be covered under the 5-year/unlimited mileage corrosion warranty, rust appearing in just 12 months is certainly disconcerting. As was the lack of surprise at this by a local body shop. Still, the Pacifica left us with a good taste, if not a good smell. But its excellence isn't reflected in its residual value. According to ALG, a 2-year-old example showing 30,000 miles is worth but 48% of the original sticker price, whereas an equivalent Odyssey retains 68%. That works out to a nearly $10,000 spread, which makes the Pacifica an especially good value in the used market. But you'll probably want to find one that wasn't shared among more than 24 people. Trans and raves. I'd rather drive this than pretty much any 3-row crossover. Joseph Caparilla. My passenger kept trying to turn the shift knob rather than the volume knob, which is located just beside it. Eric Johnson. There are clever, useful touches everywhere, from the gloss on grain on the interior surfaces to the crisp gauge cluster and the huge pop-out bin in the center stack. Rich Kepos. It's essentially a rolling living room and much better equipped than my own living room, which has no TV and only 2 power outlets. Annie White. A rockstar road tripper. Rusty Blackwell. There's no sign that this van is poorly constructed. Just the opposite, in fact. Josh quote. Retrieving a water heater was no problem with stow-and-go seats. I folded one side of the second and third rows and then it went. And I still had seats for my wife and 2 kids. Rusty Blackwell. Can't pair a phone, see the Wi-Fi password, or enter a destination in the navigation system while the vehicle is moving. This is madness. Luke Salanrad. The touchscreen is quick to respond, clearly organized, and most important, placed within easy reach of the driver. My only real complaint over the 3-day weekend was the subpar headlights. They don't generate enough light for rural Michigan at night. Joseph Caparilla. The radio comes on with every restart, even though it was muted before. And the floor covering, carpet-esque material is to dust, lint, and hair what an electromagnet is to iron. Rich Kepos, thank you for watching our video. Please give us a big like, subscribe to our channel for new videos every day with amazing cars. Leave us your opinion in the comment section on the video. Thank you.